Grade 12, Lesson 1, Relationships. Good day everybody and welcome to the first lesson of Grade 12 Databases. We will be looking at relationships. If you're unsure what a relational database is, please see our video on that as we cover in depth all the parts of a relational database. In this video, we will only look at relationships and all the interesting things that come with relationships. Let's look at the contents of this video. In this video, we will do some revision. We will look at a field or a column, a table, and a primary key. We will then look at new terms, specifically a foreign key and what relationships are. We will then look at some types of relationships, specifically one-to-one, one-to-many, and many-to-many. After this, we will look at referential integrity, specifically insert anomaly, update anomaly, and delete anomaly. After that, we will look at ER diagrams. Let's start with revision. What is a field or a column? Definition. A column is a category. The data in a category must conform to the specifications the column was created with. A table. A table is a collection of rows and columns that are related to each other in some way. In other words, one table with all the information about people in the town and another table with all the people in the town's cars. The two are related to each other because the people own cars and the cars are owned by people. Here's another example. If you look at some of our grade 11 videos, you'll recognize Cape Town Shop as one of our tables we worked with. This is just an example of Microsoft Access and how it looks in Access, how a table looks there. Next, let's look at a primary key. A primary key is a column or field that is unique to each row. In other words, each row has a unique data for the primary key or column field. Usage. Now, why do we need a primary key? Used to uniquely identify each row in a table. Will be used when relationships are established between tables in a database. In most DBMSs or database management system, a primary key is indicated with a lock or a key. Let's look at new terms, specifically the foreign key. A foreign key is a column or field that references or links to another table's primary key. A lot of literature refers to it as an association. One primary key may have multiple foreign keys linking to it. We'll look at that just now. A foreign key does not have to be unique for each field. In other words, you may have duplicate or multiple foreign keys in a table, whereas a primary key has to be unique. Again, just to iterate, can have multiple records with the same foreign key. Foreign keys can also be primary keys for a table. We'll look at an example of that as well. Next, let's look at relationships. Relationships are associations, as mentioned before, made between two or more tables in a database. Relationships use primary keys and foreign keys to make the associations. Relationships are useful for queries that need information from two or more tables. We will look, when we get to SQL and advanced SQL, we will have a look at this. But that is beyond the scope of this video, so please watch that video. Let's look at the types of relationships. A one-to-one type. For each primary key in table A, there can be at most one foreign key in table B. In other words, for each primary key in table A, there can be at most one foreign key or primary key in table B. A visual representation. So, table A links to one element in table B. Let's look at the one-to-many. For each primary key in a table, in table A, there can be multiple foreign keys in table B. In other words, each primary key in table A can have greater than 0 foreign keys in table B. In other words, it can have 0 or more foreign keys in table B. Let's look at a visual representation. Table A, if If you look, it links to multiple, one value links to multiple values in table B. Or it links to one value, or it doesn't link. But each key that it links to in table B is in table A. Let's look at the many-to-many relationship. Each key in each table A and B can have multiple records associated to multiple records. In other words, the keys in table A can link to many keys in table B, and the keys in table B can link to many keys in table A. This is a very poor way to do a database, as it can get very confusing and the relationships are not strong. There's a visual representation of it. So if you see, table A links to many elements in table B, and table B links to many elements in table A. Let's look at referential integrity. So, scenario setup. Let's just quickly set up a few things to explain insert, update, and delete anomalies. So table A has a primary key field, PK. Table B has a foreign key field, FK. They have a one-to-many relationship. So table 1 has a one-to-many relationship with table B. Let's look at the insert anomaly. This is when a new record is added into table B with foreign key that references a primary key that does not exist in table A. In other words, you insert something into table B that links to something in table A, but that something it links to does not exist in table A. Let's look at an update anomaly. This is when a foreign key value in table B is changed, but the new value does not reference a primary key in table A. Again, so we've got a linkage already. Now we update the value in table B, the foreign key value. We change it so it references a new primary key that's in table A. But the key is not in table A, so it doesn't point to anything. Thus, an update anomaly. Let's look at the delete anomaly. This is when a primary key in table A that has a foreign key association is deleted from table A. In other words, we delete the linkage of table A with table B. So B does not then point to anything. As stated there, this leaves a foreign key in table B without a primary key in table A. Now, let's combine all of these and look at an example. Look at the following tables. We've got tax group, which is group ID, which is your primary key, deductible, min value, max value, and non-taxable percentage. Then we've got employee, which has got ID, which is our primary key, name, age, income, and tax group ID, which is our foreign key. There is our relationship, and as stated, it is a one-to-many relationship. Let's look at some example output for tax group. So there's an example of the contents of tax groups. Let's look at an example of table employee. There's a very clear example of what table employee does contain. Now, information bit. All of these people in the names category are famous computer scientists or mathematicians. If you are interested in computer science or IT in general, please read up on them. For example, Alan Turing, very famous for the cracking the Enigma machine. Church is very famous for working with Turing to develop the idea of a computer. The von Neumann model is a very famous used model of a computer. Dijkstra invented the shortest path algorithm, so I do encourage you to please read up on all of them. Okay, so here's our example. So what I want you to do is I want you to read through the description and ID, and then match the ID, so basically match column A with column B into the category. So you will place, if A applies to non-anomaly, you move A into non-anomaly. If B fits with insert anomaly, you move B into insert anomaly. So I will give you as well the example output. So pause the video here, work out which goes to which, and then when you're ready, continue the video. Okay, let's look at the example output, or the answers. So, non-anomaly is B. Because GT01 does in fact exist in our table, D is insert a new employee into the employee table with a tax group ID of MT01, which does exist in our tax group table. E is delete all the employees with tax bracket LT02. So we are deleting from employees, not from tax group. And H is insert a new tax bracket into MT03, which will not affect the employees. We are just adding a new tax bracket. Okay, the insert anomalies. So A, insert a new employee into the employee table with a tax group ID of GT02. Now, GT02 does not exist, thus it is an insert anomaly as it points to a random or unknown primary key. So our update anomaly, F and G, F being update the tax bracket of employees with LT02 to LT03. LT03 does not exist, thus it cannot point to it. Thus, it's an update anomaly. Then G is update the tax bracket MT01 to MT03, which is an update anomaly as they point to MT01, not MT03. Let's look at the delete. Delete is C, which is delete the tax bracket LT02. If we delete it out of tax groups, right, all the elements in the employee that point to LT02 will not point to anything anymore. So to solve this, you would usually first delete it in the employees and then it deleted in the tax groups. Okay, let's look at ER diagrams. Definition. ER diagram shows the relationships between tables, or more specifically between the fields or entities in the tables. ER diagram shows the logical structure of the database or databases. Let's look at the legend or the diagram properties. So our table is a rectangle. Our action or relationship is defined by a diamond, and the label describes the relationship. So has this type of relationship. This table has a relationship with that table. Now attributes or fields, this is all the fields of the table. So normal fields will just be a circle, an oval with the name. Primary key will be underlined with a solid line, and the foreign key will have a dotted line underneath. Let's look at the arrows showing the type of relationships. So for a one-to-one relationship, we have a normal line. For one-to-many or one-to-n, we have a line with a little feather at the back showing the many part. And then for the many-to-many, we have two little feathers on either side. Now, very important note on ER diagrams in this video. Please note that this does not cover all of ER diagrams, just what may be required at high school level. This video might actually go beyond high school level, but it gives you a good basis if you want to study further into databases. Okay, another note. Also note some elements and definitions have been omitted to avoid confusion, as some concepts that are beyond the scope of this video are needed. So some definitions have been left out as you need prior knowledge in other fields to understand those type of concepts. Okay, let's look at an ER diagram example. Here's our table again, as per the previous example, with our one-to-many relationship. There's our tax group with all of its attributes. Please note the group ID, which is our primary key. Here is our employee with our ID or tax group ID, which is our primary key. And then tax group at the bottom is our foreign key. Okay, so there's our relationship. So tax group has a, so each tax group has a employee and or has many employees, and each employee has a tax group. Please note that sentence is very important. It has to work both ways. So tax group has many employees and a single employee has a tax group. And that is all for this video. Here's all the references used in this video. Think about the concepts in this, rewatch it if it doesn't make sense, and go read up on all of those famous computer scientists or mathematicians.